Hello ladies and gentlemen, and welcome back to Fallen London. Today we're going to be carrying on with July's exceptional story, The Stolen Song. We are going to investigate the veterinarian and the bird seller about this supposed stolen song. Let's go and see the veterinarian. The address is a short walk away. The practice is holding an evening surgery. You managed to slip in between a mouse with cataracts and a rather rude parrot. I have prescribed every kind of diversion to buoy that bird's spirits, the assiduous veterinarian tells you after confirming that the accused Contralto's songbird has been her patient for the past 5 years. Silver bells, chew toys, mirrors. Yet still it ails from the disappointment of not being allowed to share its musical gifts with the world. These last words echo the description given by both the accused Contralto and the aggrieved soprano, both of whom claim their pets to be afflicted with this peculiar melancholy. Do you know, we even commissioned a painting of an audience and placed it in front of its cage? And still no change. The assiduous veterinarian looks at you with wide, appealing eyes, as if daring you to tell her what else she could possibly have done. Might it have been pain that the painted audience never applauded? If only I knew. Truly, I do not know what else I can do for that animal. You explain that there is, in fact, one other thing she could do for her patient. Help defend its owner against prosecution. This appears to cheer the assiduous veterinarian, who heartily agrees to come to court tomorrow and testify in the accused Contralto's defense. Well, that was easy enough. Let's go see the bird seller. The shop is a short cab ride away. Your entrance into the bird seller's shop is announced by the chirping of at least a dozen caged birds. From out a back room appears a thin man wearing a shiny pinstripe suit and a stiffly waxed mustache. He carries a cane, the purpose of which becomes clear when he raps it twice against the floor and the chirping stops. Ah yes, I remember her well, the bird teller tells you, describing a visit from your client, the accused Contralto. It is not often I have occasion to welcome such an illustrious customer into my humble little shop. While the shop is small, from the look of the freshly polished brass of his bird cages and the rich velvet furnishes of his shop, humble is clearly not the impression the bird seller was hoping to give. I am sure it was 3 years ago. That year I had a chance to procure an egg of a special breed, a songbird renowned for its love of performing before an audience. Ah, yes, very special and rare, that one. After a brief conversation, the bird seller assures you he would consider it an honor to come to court tomorrow to testify on your famous client's behalf. The pub is still crammed with solicitors, barristers, and clerks. A distinctive legal odor of damp horsehair accords an unpleasant top note to the unusual pub fragrance of stale ale. Almost as overpowering as the smell is the loud din, largely the product of jovial debates over obscure points of law, punctuated by Latin quotations and emphatic prodding of chests. Oh, let's brief the rumpled barrister. Surely she'll want to be appraised of the work you've done for her case. The pub is still rowdy with legal professionals. This time, however, with the notable exception of the rumpled barrister. She's gone on one of her crawls, very likely, the bartender tells you once you've got her attention. While pulling a pint, she nods her head towards a window. Through its grimy panes, you see the lamp of another public house on the other side of the alley. Her first stop will be the Rusty Scales. When you inquire at the Rusty Scales, the publican informs you that the rumpled barrister has long since moved on, and at your next stop, the trail runs cold. Are you sure it's a boasting barrister you're after? Asks the friendly bartender at the third pub. You had a drunk cat boasting in here earlier, going on about some big legal case. No barrister, though. It being now apparent that you will not have the opportunity to brief the rumpled barrister tonight, you return to your lodgings to sleep. You'll see her in court tomorrow morning anyway. Well, let's try and brief her. As predicted, the rumpled barrister is there in the next morning on the steps of the courthouse, sucking on a large pipe and looking characteristically dishevelled. She greets you with a curt nod. Beside her stands the accused Contralto, holding a large bird cage in her arms. Although her face is partly obscured by the cage, you see her giving you a worried, expectant glance through the bars. Meanwhile, the bird has taken an interest in the rumpled barrister, turning its head to view her with each eye, and perhaps wondering if her black barrister's robe makes her some sort of crow. Well, let's share our progress. If she is to represent her client well today, she'll benefit from knowing the outcome of your evening's investigations. You describe your meeting with the assiduous veterinarian the previous evening. She has, you explain, agreed to testify that the accused Contralto songbird has long been a patient of hers. The rumpled barrister cocks her ear with interest as you recount your visit to the bird seller. You tell her he is willing to testify to selling your client her songbird some 3 years ago. While your leader acknowledges your words only by nodding, her lack of verbal response speaks volumes. For it would appear that the rumpled barrister's medicinal tour of London's pubs has done nothing to restore her vocal cords. We can raise a concern. Something about the witness statements that don't add up. You motion the rumpled barrister aside to confer with her, out of your client's earshot. The stories of the two witnesses are inconsistent, you tell her. According to the bird seller, the accused Contralto has only had the bird for 3 years. Meanwhile, the assiduous veterinarian claims that the singer has been bringing the bird to see her for a good 5. The rumpled barrister shrugs. She scribbles something in fountain pen on the palm of her hand before holding it up to your face. Then we will call only one of them to testify, the scroll says. I guess that makes sense. The real question is, who? Let's follow the rumpled barrister into court. Day 2 of the trial is about to begin. Once you are settled into your seats at the defense table, the rumpled barrister turns to you and makes all the appearance of wanting to bark some kind of instruction, but only the faintest squeak comes out of her open mouth. She tries again, but to no avail. Finally, she motions with her finger to the harassed usher standing nearby. He leads you into the court's robing room to be dressed in the spare wig and gown you wore yesterday. So we're having you play barrister again, are we? The harassed usher remarks, wirily, as he adjusts your wig into place. Best we get you robed up quickly then. His lordship's in a mood again today. Thus, once again, you find yourself acting in the rumpled barrister's stead. You must argue in defense of the accused Contralto as best you can. The cat surveys the courtroom, sphinx-like, from his stool in the witness box. A casual observer might assume that he was the one presiding over the court and that the judge remained only to take notes. You have to rattle his self-confidence to get at some semblance of the truth. We can probe his relationship with his owner, the aggrieved soprano, lay the ground for tripping the cat up later, or we can force an admission of nighttime prowling using a rumour. You recall a bartender from last night telling you she'd seen a drunk cat boasting about some big legal case. It can hardly be a coincidence. Or we can trick the cat into an admission of nighttime prowling. Use his pride to lead him into a trap. So do I want to be forceful with dangerous, or do I want to be sly with shadowy? Let's lead him into a trap. Let's be sly. So your mistress goes out every night to perform and leaves you all alone? She worries for my safety. London is you're hardly a kitten anymore. Have you suspected that a star of the music hall might be ashamed to be seen with you? Well, you claim to be a good pet, but are you not actually something of a burden to your mistress? The prosecutor rises to object, but it is too late. I am not an indoor cat. I do go out. This elicits gasps from the jury. "But my mistress knows nothing of it," the cat quickly adds, although his body remains still, his eyes, now widened, dart around the courtroom. Let's probe his relationship with his owner. Would you consider yourself to be a good, loyal companion? You are well aware of the soprano's presence in the gallery as you ask the question. The cat stretches himself up onto his forelegs and lifts his chin high. "Of course I would," he replies in an indignant tone. "Then you would say that you and your mistress are close? There are no secrets between you?" "Not at all. I am my mistress's closest confidant and advisor." The cat's eyes move to focus on something behind you. His mistress. He then draws himself back down into his sphinx-like pose. Let's point out an inconsistency. There is a contradiction in the cat's testimony. You have the cat now. Moments ago, you told the court that you keep no secrets from your mistress, and yet you have also admitted to leaving your mistress's house without her knowledge or permission. How are we to believe your previous assertion that you are a good and loyal companion? The cat raises its head and begins to yowl. "But I am a good cat. I always come home in time for tea, and I always say what my mistress tells me to say." The jury gasps. The cat curls up on the stool and buries his face in his tail. A stifled cry of fury rings through from the gallery of the courtroom. Declaring you have no further questions for the cat, you take your seat, and then turn to the barrister to gauge her reaction to your triumph. But she is engrossed in silent communication with the harassed usher. Her sign language indicates that she is trying to procure herself a beverage. "I now call upon our newest member of the bar to open their case for the defense," declares the judge. You quickly scan the rumpled barrister's trial notes. According to her trial strategy, the defense will prove the defendant's innocence by showing that her song is the original. Its authenticity and the story it tells must be beyond doubt. You just have to convince the jury of this. With a final glance at the notes, you rise to address the court. "Let's call our first witness. Your client is going to have to testify sooner or later." Bearing her large bird cage in both arms, the accused Contralto approaches the stand. Thrusting the cage in front of her, she squeezes through the low wooden gate of the witness box. A harassed usher manages to close it after her, though with some difficulty due to the voluminous bustle of her dress. She now finds herself having to turn herself about to face the court, but she's wedged in. After 3 valiant but increasingly violent attempts to yank herself around, the judge loses his patience. "Enough! I will not have a French farce enacted in my courtroom," he barks down from his bench. "I suggest the defense find a more suitable accommodations for this bird while the witness testifies. There is a tall stool in front of the jury box. Placing the bird there might make the accused Contralto's song about the bird seem all the more true. The only other surface big enough to accommodate the cage is a ledge in front of the judge's bench, where the presence of an animal may exert a soothing influence on the irritable judge, so we can set the bird cage in front of the jury. The bird is exquisite, rosy pink in colour, bright of eye, and adorably plump of breast. Perhaps the jury would be charmed by the defendant's pet, and by extension, the defendant, if they were to see it up close. Or we can set the bird cage in front of the judge. If the judge is soothed or distracted by the presence of the bird, he might become less particular about your line of questioning. Let's put it in front of the jury. You place the cage in front of the jury box. This elicits ohs of delight from the jury members, who lean over and around each other to get a better view of the bird. Meanwhile, those who have been napping are nudged awake by their neighbours. The man in the front even begins reaching towards the cage in an apparent attempt to touch the bird, but his hand is snatched back, protectively, by the woman sitting next to him. Others wave their hands in to solicit the attention of the bird, who in turn silently ignores them. With her precious bird removed from the stand, the accused Contralto is free to testify without feathery interference. Let's examine the witness. Ask the accused Contralto to share the story behind her song, told in her own words. It'll ring all the truer. The Contralto's eyes dart nervously between you and the bird as she tells her story. She acquired her songbird as a fledgling from a bird seller. As it grew, so did its wonderful voice. Sadly, it being a creature from a tropical clime, setting the bird free, or even taking it to a drafty music hall, would be dangerous to its health. Nevertheless, she feels immense guilt over her bird's confinement. My heart never breaks to keep her all caged up like that, but what else can I do? The accused Contralto looks towards the jury box with appeal in her eyes. If I let her fly about outside, she'd perish in the cold. A poor wee thing like that. She'd not last 5 minutes in the London weather. The jury follows the accused Contralto's gaze as she looks, first towards her exotic pet in its cage, then up to the windows of the courtroom, through which you can note London's typical absence of meaningful meteorological activity. After punctuating this moment with a shudder, the drama of which provokes some in the jury to shudder in sympathy, the singer concludes her testimony. So as you can see, it's my song that's the true one, on account of it being a true story. How else could I be bringing my audience to tears with my song if there weren't truth in it? The truth's plain to hear in every word, every note I sing. We can have the accused Contralto invite her bird to sing. If your client could bid her bird sing for the court, the beauty of its voice would surely support her case. After a little coaxing by its owner, the bird bursts into song. The effect of the bird's pure, crystalline voice on the court is almost immediate. The judge's expression softens and he gazes dreamingly into the distance. One jury member begins to weep, another, in silence, passes him a handkerchief. As the bird nears its final cadenza, it regales its audience with a sparkling display of melismatic flourishes that shower the courtroom like fairground fireworks. The bird stops mid-arpeggio to peck at fragments of bread and cake that two young men of the jury, perhaps hoping to reward the bird's efforts, have taken out of their pockets and poked through the bars of the cage. But it is of no matter. It is now clear that unlike the aggrieved soprano's cat, the defendant's pet does indeed have a beautiful voice. And as the accused Contralto's song claims, not allowing her bird to share its musical talents with the world may indeed be doing it a grave disservice. We'll tell the judge we have no further questions. The bird's song serves as a clear counterpoint to the cat's wailing. Surely the court can see no further questions are required. A triumphant opening for the case for the defence. The jury are whispering amongst themselves, a few even nodding in your direction. Meanwhile, the prosecuting counsel is noisily shuffling documents around his table. His frown and bowed head suggest the neatness of his paper pile is of the utmost importance. You turn to the rumpled barrister for a sign of encouragement. Well done, he scrawls in your notebook. He pauses a moment, as if about to add some kind of useful instruction. But instead of doing so, she puts down the pen with a gruff nod, leans back in her chair, and closes her eyes. Ignoring the defendant, the prosecutor turns to address the defendant's bird. Your mistress claims that you have never left her house until this day, having been confined there since you were a chick. Can you confirm this to be the case? A tense pause follows. Jury members peer closely at the bird, no doubt wondering whether the bird can even talk. His attention is rewarded when the bird opens its beak and, in a rather lovely voice, produces a series of shrill and vulgar expletives. The shocked silence that ensues is broken by the judge. Members of the jury, I do apologize. Never have I heard such language spoken in this courtroom. The judge now turns to shout at you. How can this bird be housebound? It swears like a sailor. Oh god. So we can either make an accusation of witness tampering. If you think fast, perhaps you can come up with an explanation for this that does not impinge on your case. We can claim the bird learned to curse from the accused Contralto. Surely it's the simplest explanation. Or we can stall the judge. You just need time to come up with a good explanation. Let's just say it was the accused Contralto. The judge raises an eyebrow and leans over to the bench to address your client. Is that true, madam? Yes, your lordship, the accused Contralto replies. It seems my dreadful habit has corrupted my sweet bird's innocence. He produces a handkerchief and uses it to stifle a wail. Oh, for shame. Then perhaps the witness could demonstrate her use of colourful language for us now. The defendant's eyes briefly flash with terror. Be not afraid, madam, the judge reassures you. I will, of course, overlook any issue of contempt of court. Any members of the jury wishing to cover their ears may do so now. The Contralto musters a long breath, preparing herself in a way that suggests she is about to give the most challenging performance of her career. The jury, none of whom have covered their ears, lean forward in expectation. Damn you, you stotty-nosed so-and-so, you porridge-faced pudding? Guffaws erupt from the jury box. One man's face turns a shade of puce, suggestive of respiratory failure. The judge shakes his head slowly, as if now very tired. A witness testified for the defense, but their testimony barely withstood cross-examination. I'm starting to think that maybe this isn't true. Maybe I'm defending the wrong person here. But it's not a lawyer's job to make judgment. Right, who do we want to call to testify? Counsel for the defense, do you have any further witnesses you intend to call? The judge is stern. I believe we have time left for one or two, provided the court's time is not wasted with amateur theatrics. The last remark provokes a snigger from the prosecuting counsel, but he is quickly silenced by the look of rebuke from the judge. So, do we want to call the bird seller to testify? As you learned from your conversation with him the previous evening, the bird seller can offer evidence of the accused Contralto's ownership of the bird. Or we can call the assiduous veterinarian to testify. The assiduous veterinarian can offer evidence of how the bird ails from a frustrated desire to perform before an audience. Let's go with that one. You point to the bird cage. Can the witness confirm that this bird is a patient of hers? Oh, why, yes, the assiduous veterinarian replies. I have done my very best for that poor bird these past 5 years. After a short series of questions regarding the bird's medical history, you sit down, handing the witness over to the prosecution for cross-examination. Prosecuting counsel now fires a series of questions in quick succession, barely affording the veterinarian time to breathe, let alone reflect on her answers. How do you know the bird yearns to perform for a public audience? Have you asked it? Is it not fair to say that this bird is, by all appearances, and contrary to what the defendant have claimed, in fine and robust health? Have you lied in the court today, ma'am? Instead of answering his last question immediately, the assiduous veterinarian shoots an apologetic look, first at you, and then at the accused soprano behind you. I wouldn't like to say, she says finally, eliciting gasps from the jury. We will adjourn here, the judge declares. Counsel for the defense, I advise you to take this opportunity to confer with your client and get her story in order, he adds sternly. Damn it! There's holes in our story. The judge pulls a watch out from under his robe, squints at it, then sighs as he returns it to his pocket. Let's confront your client. It's time to get the truth of the matter. You followed the rumpled barrister out of the courthouse lobby, where you both join the accused Contralto. The space is filled with bustling sounds of people filing through the courtroom. This, at least, affords you some sort of privacy for the robust conversation you will have with your client. The rumpled barrister pays you no attention, having engaged herself in a jovial exchange with the prosecuting counsel, whom she appears to know rather well. What she lacks in voice, she is making up for in wild gesticulation. We can accuse the accused Contralto of lying about the bird. That bird's past is surely more colourful than she claims. Go with that. Your client's pet is not the homebound bird described in the song. Indeed, she doesn't appear to know this bird much at all. The shocking display of the bird's language earlier has made that clear. The accused Contralto clearly procured the bird very recently, and has concocted a tale of its origins that is patently false. While the assiduous veterinarian claims she has been treating the bird for the past 5 years, the bird seller says he sold it to her as a hatchling not more than 3 years ago. Is this bird not so much a pet as it is a prop? A prop the singer purchased solely for the purpose of pretending her version of the song is authentic and original. Well, you see, the thing is, the accused Contralto begins before trailing off in a similar manner, failing to muster any sort of answer at all. The rumpled barrister, by contrast, now appears to have a lot to say to you, but she's unable to rasp out anything intelligible above the ambient din. Well, let's hear our client's confession. Judging by the way her head is bowed, she seems ready to tell the truth. Yes, I purchased the bird a week ago, and I paid people to say otherwise, she tells you. She looks up with appeal in her eyes, but I only did it for fear of no one believing me. It really is my song, but it's been in my head so long I can't remember when I wrote the thing, or even why I wrote it. She offers you the name of another potential witness, her oldest friend, the manager of the music hall where she performs. This woman can confirm she's telling the truth, she says. But this revelation is rudely interrupted by a tap on your shoulder. You turn around to find a man dressed like a sailor, clutching what appears to be a note. The sailor trembles a little as he stands awaiting your response. The rumpled barrister looks him up and down with a distasteful look and returns her attention to the prosecuting barrister. Meanwhile, the crowd in the lobby is now thinning out, and people have begun to stare. Let's deal with this frightened sailor. He is distracting both the rumpled barrister and your client. You won't be able to focus on the case until you've got rid of him. The sailor hands you a folded piece of paper and scampers away. The note is damp and smells of seawater. You peel it open. It purports to be from the concerned observer who has read about the case in the morning papers. If you wish to see justice done, you will go here tonight. These words are accompanied by the address of a public house located down at the London docks. And below the address there is a blank space. There would have been plenty of room to outline some sort of particulars of what the injustice is and how it may be righted. But then, concerned observers who go about sending anonymous notes do enjoy being unnecessarily mysterious, don't they? You look up from the note to see the rumpled barrister has gone. She's gone back to her chambers, she says, to work on the trial strategy. The accused Contralto looks at you with hope in her eyes, and a little pleadingly. Perhaps you'll go there to work on strategy too? She promises to see you the next morning at court. But I think this is where I shall end this episode. We shall go and meet this mysterious... I was going to say benefactor. I'm not entirely sure it will be a benefactor. This mysterious person's in the pub in the next episode. Thank you all very much for watching. Please like, subscribe, let me know what you think. Thank you again to the members of the channel. It really does help make these videos possible and keep the channel going. But as always, I'll see you next time.